it's just part of the league. But we move on to the AFC South still, but we had the Titans go on the road against the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland Browns coming off a tough loss, but we did see versus the Steelers, Deshaun Watson kind of get the feel for the pocket back. He was starting to look like he was getting his elusiveness back in this game. I was like, he's going to start hitting those misses that he had to Elijah Moore and Amari Cooper down the sideline, those one-on-one routes. I'm like, there's going to be a game where Deshaun starts to hit those and he starts to throw the ball, and they got some pass interference calls from it, and Deshaun Watson was able to connect with Elijah Moore and Amari Cooper on some massive plays in this game. There was the touchdown that Amari Cooper should have had, and the refs called him out of bounds way too early. He wasn't out of bounds, but he would have had a wide open touchdown running it down the field. And then for me, the Browns, we talk about teams that are really good and have their weaknesses at drafting certain positions, but I think it's safe to say the Browns are pretty fucking good at drafting running backs. I mean, Jerome Ford being able to step in, not only did he have another rushing touchdown, not only did he still look dynamic, he had a receiving touchdown in this game that looked really good.
Yeah, the Browns are electric right now, and you're right. I mean, they had the Dearness Johnsons of the world. He stepped in, he balled. Obviously, they drafted Nick Chubb, but it seems like they're able to implement running backs like really no other team. I mean, obviously, Kareem Hunt was proven in Kansas City, but he's been able to develop. You didn't see much from him. He just joined the team. I think he'll be a good piece for them moving forward with the loss of Chubb. But my takeaway with this team, with the Browns specifically, they have allowed the least amount of yards to the first 3 games of this millennium.
What the hell?
Yes, they have the lowest amount of yards allowed since the 99 Bucs. That's the Warren Sapp era Bucs.
99?
Super Bowl, the Super Bowl Bucs for the most part. So this defense is killing it on every front, and I think that's going to be their piece there. If Deshaun Watson, which he played a great game against the Titans, it's not like that defense is a slouch by any means. Mike Vrabel plays hard. So for the Browns, I mean, I think with the Bengals trying to piece things together, the Ravens having some injuries, and the Steelers having a pretty horrible offense for the most part, this Browns team, they're primed for a position where they could play some upset ball and win this division, potentially, especially if Deshaun Watson plays like he did on Sunday. And then for the Titans, it's like they're facing a tough team. The Browns, they have a tough defense. But for Tannehill, I think, you can only lose so many games at this point in the season before you start to look to your future. And Ryan Tannehill has played poorly through the first 3 games, and I'd like to see him rebound. I think that, ideally they want to start Will Levis next year. But, I mean, if you guys start to lose some games, I think you got to see what you have with the kid, because right now Tannehill is making too many mistakes for them to win games.
Yeah, I do think Will Levis would be the same situation, especially if you threw him out there like a team like the Cleveland Browns or the Indianapolis Colts. And I feel like for young quarterbacks, I'm fine if you let them sit. Let Ryan Tannehill be that sacrificial lamb. This is probably going to be his last year in Tennessee, but I feel like this is going to be the season where the Titans are like, okay, he got us to a conference championship. That's nice, but it's time for us to take a step forward at the quarterback position. And then maybe if Tannehill isn't the guy, you go out there and you get a Kirk Cousins next year. Like, he's someone who's probably going to be on the market where if the Vikings keep losing games, they're going to be like, well, what if we paired Caleb Williams with Justin Jefferson, and then we're able to go out there, get a running back, fix our run game. Cam Akers is definitely not the answer here. So you could see the Titans go after someone like a Kirk Cousins. Maybe you start the mayonnaise maniac in Will Levis at some point this season if Tannehill really starts going downhill. And I think we'll probably see him around like week 15 or 16 if they're out of playoff contention. But I feel like with Tannehill, you're going to get these games when he's going up against a defense, like you said, that has allowed the least yards since the 99 Bucs. And with the Browns this year, I was hammering the table saying Jim Schwartz is going to take that defense to the next level. We saw it week 1 versus the Cincinnati Bengals at home in Cleveland. And then all the players on that defense were like, we're singing his praises. We added some dynamic linebackers on this team with Zadarius Smith, who can come off the corner on the blitz. We have Denzel Ward now being used in better situations. And then Myles Garrett is on a mission to be that defensive player in the year. He's looking like someone who could be a TJ Watt, Micah Parsons, and Aaron Donald. He's been one of the most dominant defensive players in the league. So looking at the Browns defense, and I think that's what's really going to take you to the Super Bowl because they dominate in the trenches. They have a dynamic run game. They have probably one of the most technical run coaches in the league in Kevin Stefanski. He was the one who really made Dalvin Cook that dynamic running back and got him those rushes. So I was like, if Deshaun Watson is himself, he's better than Joe Burrow. Like, because he can
powers,
run
yes.
it. He's more elusive, and at the peak of his powers, he was better than Joe Burrow. This was a guy coming out of college. His coach was calling him the Michael Jordan of football, and he kind of showed that in Houston without too much help. He was consistently taking them to the playoffs. He led the league in passing yards one year, I believe.
He did, yeah, 5,000 yards. So I think that this is a team that if they start really rolling, which this is a great win. They had a great win against the Bengals and a tough, gritty game against the Steelers, typical AFC North matchup. This is a team that can really start rattling off some wins. They have a good matchup next week, and I think they could really start piecing together some wins and really starting to give the Bengals, Ravens, and Steelers some trouble.
Yeah, that's why I was like down kind of on the media this year. I'm like, give Deshaun a chance. Like, let's not pile on him too early because the guy did miss 2 years of football. Dude seems like he had a lot of mental health issues with all of that situation that went on in Houston. He got over all of those legal cases. Definitely a very bizarre situation, one of the weirdest ones in NFL history. But he like not only did he have to fix like physically, but he probably had a lot of work to do on his mental health to really get himself to be back to being an elite quarterback in the NFL, because it's not like it's easy to go through that much defamation publicly.
Yeah, and not only that, I mean, you touched on the lawyers and, you know, the lawsuits and going to court and all these other things. Meanwhile, every time you turn on ESPN, they're calling you a monster, which you are. You did some horrible things. I'm not here to defend him, but, you know, 2 years out of the league with all this baggage that's been carrying over him, this is kind of the year where they're not really taking him seriously. You know, they saw how he played the last 6 games of the season last year. Didn't play the greatest football, but he's starting to piece things together, and I think that he could. This team could finally, the Browns can finally be what we want them to be, what we've thought they could be the last 5-6 years.